Hi, I'm Jack here at Sully's Clay. We're going to make the sardine ring out of silver clay. In this video, I'm working with Art Clay Silver 950. It's made of 95% silver and 5% copper. The small copper content makes a big impact. It fires into a harder, more durable metal, which is excellent for when you want to make rings to be worn every day. A little side note, just to keep in mind that this clay is for kiln fire only. Every brand of silver clay has its own shrinkage rate, and understanding that is an essential part of making rings. If you don't account for shrinkage, your ring simply won't fit. In this video, I will walk you through the shrinkage rate of Art Silver Clay, showing you exactly how I size my rings to make sure they fire down perfectly every single time. This is the ring that we're going to make. And as you can see, one side of the band is thicker and the other side is thinner. On the thinner side, we also have an overlay of clay. We need to take this into account when sizing our ring. Our final size ring that we want to achieve is a UKP. I'll be making my ring on a mould that is 4 to 5 sizes bigger. Q being 1, R being 2, S being 3, T being 4 and U being 5. When making this sort of band, you can choose between T or U. I'm going to be choosing T for the purpose of this video. If you're new to using these ring moulds, check out my video below on how to prepare them. With our final ring size wanting to be a P, I will match that with a fireable pellet. In this case, it will be an 8 US size. If you want to know more about these pellets, check out my video below. When working with metal clay, it's important to remember that it has a drying time. The moment you open the packet and the clay meets the air, it begins to dry. You'll notice it slowly becoming firmer, and if it's left too long, it may start to crack or crumble, which makes it harder to work with. To avoid this, I always recommend planning your design beforehand. You can test shapes and ideas using polymer clay or art dry clay. This lets you explore the flow, sizing and structure of your piece without rushing. Now I'm going to go through all the tools that are needed for this tutorial. All tools will be linked down below. Olive oil, a pot of tap water, an airtight container, your silver clay, your clay cutter, a texture roller, ring mould of your chosen size, depth guides and rolling folder, a non-stick work mat, a rolling pin, a ruler, a point pen, a silicone nibbed tool and a paintbrush, art clay paste, your kiln and all of the accessories that are needed with your kiln, sanding pads and a wet wipe, your ring pellet of your chosen size, a brass brush, liver of sulphur, bicarbonate of soda and jars, a ring mandrel and hammer. Now let's get making. First, we're going to oil everything that comes into contact with silver clay. We do this so that the clay doesn't stick to any of our tools. When we're happy, we're going to open up our silver clay and roll it into a little sausage. Taking our depth guide, we're going to roll out our clay in length and in width. I'm using 1.5 depth guides here. Now we're going to take a ruler and measure exactly how much clay that we want. As I'm using an extra long cutter, I am going to manipulate the shape so that it works for the size that I would like. As you can see, I've marked out the tail and now I'm going to press only the top end of the cutter down to mark out where I want the head shape. For this purpose, I'm only creating an outline. Now, testing out on some polymer clay and finding out which way I want my scales to roll. Here is a preview of what we're trying to achieve. I place my texture roller just behind the head, leaving the head blank. I press lightly down. As I roll my texture roller towards the tail, I'm making sure to leave the tail blank. Now taking my point pen, I am lightly scratching the top surface of my clay. I'm making sure to go outside of the line markers that we've made using the cutter. Now I'm going to take the lid of my point pen and oil it. This is how I make my eye shape. You don't have to use this, just a small circle works just as well. I'm also going to add a dot in the centre of the eye to give extra detail. Using the point pen, I'm going to cut out where we did our marker for the head. I'm then going to take the clay cutter and line it up to the tail detail that we have created. Remove any of your unwanted clay and store correctly. This is how I do it. I wrap it in cling film, then I pop over a damp wet wipe and store in an airtight container. We want to do this because silver clay dries when it comes into contact with the air. And now it's time to refine our design before we turn it into the ring. I'm flipping over my work folder and covering the top of my piece before turning the entire piece upside down. This gives me the underside of the clay, which is where I'm going to add a little water so that it adheres more strongly to my ring mould. My ring mould is already prepared. If you need a full demo on how this process works, the link is down below. As I place the strip onto the mould, I'm aiming for the tail first to attach, as we are wanting the head to attach last so that it wraps around the tail. I'm pressing very gently down on the clay to anchor the clay to the mould. As we have used water, this helps the process. I'm leaving the head free so I can add some art clay silver paste to fully bond the two ends together. I'm applying a generous amount of paste and using water to spread it in any visible gaps. If I need it thinner, I'll dilute the paste with a little water and sweep it along the joins. Once I'm happy with every space that I filled and that the head and tail are completely joined, it's time to dry in place. Inside your clay packet, it talks about how to dry. There's different versions. You can use a hairdryer, a kiln, or a mug warmer. Once your piece is fully dried, you can pop it off your mould and remove the paper. After your piece is dry, come back in with some silver clay paste and check for any fine cracks. This can appear because the clay shrinks as it dries, so this stage is your opportunity to refine and perfect everything before firing. Here I'm showing you the edges and pointing out exactly where I'm filling. I'm patching a tiny crack first, brushing the paste back and forth and thinning it slightly with water. Then going back to the main job between the head and tail, adding more paste on the inside of the ring to reinforce the connection. This helps prevent the join from pulling apart during firing. Once I've refined all the joins, I'm going to pop my ring back to be dried. After your ring is completely dry, now we're in the dry stage, one of the most important stages in the entire process. I'm using 3 sanding pads, 800, 1000, 1500 grit. I'm slowly working my way around my ring, smoothing every edge and the full surface of the band. I'm sanding the inside of the ring too, making sure that it's comfortable to wear. This stage needs patience because the clay is still delicate. It isn't metal yet. I'm going to repeat each step going up in grit as we work around our ring. As I'm doing this, I'm continually checking the ring to make sure that I am not removing any of the detail on top of the surface. I'm putting all of my focus on the edges and on the inside of the band and where we filled in any of the cracks. Here you can see the difference between the side that I have sanded and the side that I haven't. Now you can see why sanding at this stage is so important. It really elevates and perfects your ring before firing. Once you have completed all of these steps, it's now time to have a real good look at your ring. Sanding and filing your ring in the dry stage is much easier than once it is solid metal. Our final step before firing is taking a damp wet wipe. Gently pass this over your ring. It removes all of the tiny particles that you can't see and giving your piece a much cleaner and smoother finish before firing. I always like to leave my piece at this stage for around about half an hour just to settle and to make sure that I'm happy with it before I fire. Now I'm choosing my fireable pellet. I want my final size to be a UKP, which in this instance is a US 8. The instructions on how to fire your art clay silver in your kiln are in the bag. I pop my clay in cold. I then ramp up my kiln to 500 and hold for 30 minutes. At this stage, you might see smoke. This is completely normal. It is just the organic binder burning away. It's always recommended when you're using your kiln to fire in a ventilated area. After the 30 minutes, I ramp up my kiln to 870 degrees and hold for 60 minutes. After the 60 minutes, I switch off my kiln. I leave my piece inside until it's completely cool. Once fired, your ring is now solid silver. Once your ring has come out of the kiln, you will notice that it is a dull grey sort of chalky colour. Now for the magic part. Pass your brass brush back and forth over your ring. This will remove the top layer and reveal the silver underneath. Once you are happy with the level of shine, you can either leave it here or you can take it further by polishing it up or platinaing it. For this purpose of the video, I'm going to patina the ring. I'm wanting to add a weathered look for my sardine ring, which is why I'm going to patina it. Here I'm going to add a few drops of liver of sulfur into some warm water, dipping my ring in and out to let it develop to the darkest tone. Once we have patinaed our ring, we now need to neutralize it. Here I'm adding 1 tablespoon of bicarbonate of soda into a cup of warm water. I'm going to allow my ring to sit in there for 1 to 3 minutes. We do this so the process of oxidizing stops processing. Once I'm happy, I'm going to give it a little wash with some soap and water. And here you can see it is completely oxidized to the darkest colour. Now to achieve my weathered look, I'm taking the 1500 grit and I'm going to add some water. And I'm brushing back the top of the patina. Here you can see it has only removed the top layer of patina. This brings out the raised silver details while keeping the dark tones in the textured areas. You can see a dramatic change almost instantly. I will continue this method until I'm happy with the look that I'm going for. When I'm done, I always need to check the size just to make sure that we are happy. And here you can see we used a size 8 US pellet and we wanted to achieve a size P. And here you go. It is a perfect size and ready to be worn. And there you have it. That's how I create my quirky sardine ring from silver clay. I really hoped you've loved following along this tutorial and picked up some tips that might help you with your creations. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share if you like this tutorial. I'll see you on the next one. Bye!